back, relax, and let's have a chapter chat. I'm your host, Jessica Foster, and we are joined by author Katherine Reay, and she's going to talk about her latest release, The English Masterpiece. Katherine, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for inviting me, Jessica. I really appreciate it, and I'm absolutely delighted to be here.
And I was delighted with your novel. The English Masterpiece is set in the 1970s London art scene. Let's give them a little bit of a synopsis.
So it's set 2 weeks after Picasso's death in 1973, London, at the Tate Gallery. And he was the most iconic artist that the world had known, especially within his lifetime. So every museum was trying to honor him right after his death, commemorate him. So the Tate Gallery puts on a world-class exhibition, and Lily Summers, the assistant keeper, walks into the opening show and declares a painting a forgery. That sets off a worldwide scandal, and Lily, to save her job and everything else, tries to find the culprit before she herself is framed for the crime. So there you go, a little bit.
Yeah, I love that. And you said that you really enjoyed writing this.
I loved it. I loved it for many different aspects. Number one was the time period. 1973 London was not unlike today, with a lot of tensions and forces and interesting things happening. I actually read an article that said 1973 was the most pivotal year in British history. And I could not believe that, because they had gone through the Blitz. They'd gone through, forging the way in World War II. However, in 73, there were strikes across every sector. There were the 3-day work week. There was an energy crisis. And so it put the story within this tense time, which just added to Lily's, sort of fight to save herself as sort of forces are closing in on her. So it was an interesting time. It was a wonderful world of art and forgery and that sensorial kind of world of culture and theater, et cetera, to dig into. And it just had this whodunit chase to it that kept the pace alive. So yes, I had so much fun.
And let's talk a little bit about your connection with London and why you wanted to write a novel set in London.
I've moved 17 times in my life, so I try to set novels where I've lived, because I don't believe you can understand a culture unless you've got feet on the ground. That said, I did live a couple years in the early 2000s in London, and so I knew how to move my characters around. Now, every book I set in London, I do try to return, because that's fun, and do the very specific research. Like for this one, I did get into the archives of the Tate, really researched, and it was Tate Britain, really researched what it was like in 1973, the actual exhibits they hosted, what the structure was like, because that was pre-expansion. I also interviewed a chairman of Art and Species of one of the Lloyds of London syndicate insurance companies to learn what art was in that world at the time and what the investigation would be in a forgery. But I love the city. It's dynamic. It's probably my favorite city in the world. And so every time I get to return there, it's a treat.
Well, I went for the very first time about a year ago, and oh my goodness, I fell in love with London.
Yeah. It's so dynamic. It's so dynamic. It's so much fun. There's so much history. And to me, it's not overwhelming. Meaning the buildings aren't all, 87 stories high. There's just this blend of the modern and the ancient and the cacophonous and movement and style. It's really a lot of fun.
It is. And I thought the people were so lovely too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you have tea every afternoon, how can you not be lovely?
Well, yeah, when I came home, I was like, okay, I need sugar cubes. I need tea. It just became this thing that I had to have.
Right. Totally agree. Scones.
Yes. Oh, yeah. You can't forget about the scones. Well, I don't blame you for wanting to set a book in London and then have to go back for research. I mean, that's not a bad gig.
It's not a bad gig.
This is actually your second career. Let's talk a little bit about your first career and then how you transitioned into becoming an author.
Yeah, it was a dramatic transition. So prior to writing, I worked in marketing, and as I said, I moved a lot during those years, and I have three kids, and my kids were young. But in 2009, I was very severely injured, and it took about three surgeries to put me back together, and it took a year of recovery. And during that time, a story came to me, a story of a young woman who has a terrible childhood growing up in the Chicago foster care system. And she's angry and she's in pain. And her self-defense mechanism was to hide behind her favorite literary personas. So I started writing that story. And when it sold, which was a miracle in and of itself, it sold in a multi-book contract. So then I had to learn how to write for real. And that was the start of my writing career. And now in 12 years, I've published 12 novels. I have loved this. I've learned a ton. It's been a race, and I hope it gets to continue.
Well, I think it will continue because you are so talented. I love this book.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you were saying that it was just a miracle that your first novel sold. Let's dive into that a little bit. Why do you say that?
I think because discovery is so difficult, to be honest. I mean, there are so many avenues and fabulous avenues for readers to find books. But if you're on the other side of that, if you're trying to sell a book, that's a steep climb to get an editor to read your book, to get an agent to find you. Back then, I mean, and it only was, 2012 when I started shopping it, self-publishing and boutique publishing wasn't as far along as it now is, even a decade later. So it feels like a very steep climb. And I think in traditional publishing, it probably still is. Discoverability is difficult, though fabulously from the reader's point of view, accessibility is wide open, which is wonderful. So there's this duality going on, but it's a good marketplace for readers.
Oh, it is. And I talk about this a lot, but I say reading is cool again because, we're seeing Gen Z, they are all about their books.
Oh my goodness. And Gen Z buying books, which I love. You're absolutely right. Raving about books, reading has become cool. I also think that it's not only cool, but people are recognizing it as almost, and I don't mean an escape per se, but a place to go, not only grow your empathy in your brain, but also take a rest from the world, dive into another world. I think it's providing this sort of touch point to a deeper reality that we all need.
It's a form of stress relief. For me, I know it is.
Writing is too.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. And publishing 12 in 12 years, that's fast.
It has been fast. It's been wonderfully fast. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a pace that has been really invigorating. That's not to say I won't take a little bit of a break here or there, but stories have just kept coming my way, and which is really surprising because I am a one idea at a time writer. At the end of each novel, I have this moment of panic that another good idea will never come my way. And then thankfully, one does drift by, I grab it and start again.
And how long does it take you to finish a book, would you say?
Most of the time about a year and a half, and I start one even before I finish, maybe finally editing the previous one. But some books have taken less time. For instance, I published a sort of spy novel in 2024 called The Berlin Letters, and that took me, because of circumstances, only 9 months to write. It is one of my most favorite books because it is a chase of a story of a young CIA officer trying to save her father from a Stasi prison. And it was a chase of a story to write because I had no time to slow down. And I think all of that energy I felt translated into the story, which I think made it more powerful than if I'd had a lot of leisure time. That's what happens when you've got two daughters graduating from college and an upcoming move, and you have to finish a novel because life is just too busy if you don't.
I understand that. Sometimes I think that you can get more done when you have more on your plate.
That is true. You can get into this hyper-focused state And it not only do you get more done, but in many ways, and you can't live like this all the time, but in many ways, you can get it done better. And I think that is what happened with the Berlin letters.
And as far as the English masterpiece, you said that you really enjoyed writing the villain in this story.
I did. I did. There was just, and it's sort of like writing about spies. With forgers, what you see is not what you get. They are living this duality of the presentation versus the truth. And so that's not only reflective in their art, but also some of the greatest forgers in history were con men. I mean, that was part of the brilliance of the forgery, was the con that supported it. And so to write about, con men, con women who are not, they're hiding something the whole time. It's a challenge to write, and it's so much fun to write.
And what I'm hearing you say is that you do a lot of research too for your books.
I do. I do a ton of research because until I feel I can live within that world, and that's upfront research, I don't think I can write about it. So, for instance, in the English masterpiece, yes, I knew London, but I didn't know the Tate at that time. The Tate Gallery is now, I'm talking about the building that is now Tate Britain, not Tate Modern that's across the river, but Tate Britain. And so I didn't know what that felt like at the time. I didn't know, as I said, the culture of insurance at the time. For instance, in 1973, art was still classified as marine cargo. And that didn't change until the 1980s, when money flooded back into the market and valuations of art went up as people looked to other places to park money as investment. So that changes, the tone of the book as well and what we're talking about. So once I got a feel for that world, then I could start writing within it. And I also had to learn about just the logistics of forgery, painting, underpainting, different acrylic versus oil, all that kind of stuff. And also where Lily might have lived or worked, meaning St. Martin's School of Art at the time in London was the premier art school and the world's premier sculpture school. And so that was really fun too, to dig in what that would have been like, which today is Foyle's bookstore on the Charing Cross Road. So lots of research up front, and the research never ceases while I write.
Oh, that's fascinating. And it makes a difference too in the books and for the reader, because it does really place you within that world that you're creating.
Yeah. For instance, like, when Lily's talking about different exhibits, I tried to make those real exhibits. And I know that's minor. A reader would never know, but I did try to make them the real exhibits that the Tate had going on at that time. Because you're right. If you can believe even those tiny details, then you're going to believe the whole journey, hopefully, that I take you on.
I also like the fact that it focuses in on art, because art is such an important part of culture and history.
It really is on so many deep levels, even subliminally.
We've done a lot of reports here about how art and music has been taken out of school in many ways. And I think that's such a disservice to our children.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Because it's such an important part of it's an important part of history. I mean, if you think about it, the music you listen to or the music you understand absolutely defines you. You can listen to a song and you can remember where and you were and what you were doing. And if you then listen to songs from the past, you can understand a little bit about where they were, what they were doing. So you're right. It's incredibly powerful.
It really is powerful. And I actually have a little story. As a mom, my daughter, she's not as outgoing as I am. She doesn't really like the stage. She doesn't like to be the center of attention. She's more timid in that way. We enrolled her in a school when they have a big focus on performance art, and all the children are required to learn an instrument and perform on this big stage twice a year. And I thought, oh goodness, where is this going to go? Well, let me tell you, that very first performance, she got up on that stage. I was crying because she was just rocking it out. And it just unveiled something in her that I don't even think that she knew she had.
Yeah. No, I'm sure she didn't. That's the thing. I mean, that's the power of it. She was joining in the art and the other you can forget. And then all of a sudden you are larger than you ever thought you could be through something you love, through something that's running through you. I think that's a fabulous story. It's going to serve her for the rest of her life. I've always wanted to play an instrument. I've never been able to. I've had two piano teachers who've quit on me because they said I really wasn't worth their time. And I don't blame them. I don't have an ear for music, but I do love it.
Well, hey, it's never too late.
I don't know if a third piano teacher is ever going to take me on again. I mean, I was a full-grown adult in graduate school when I tried the second round.
Maybe a different instrument, right?
Right, maybe. I don't even know. What could I begin? Like the recorder? I mean, no idea.
But writing is an art form too.
True. It's really interesting. My daughter is a very talented artist and an architect. And I always thought, she was so monstrously talented that, and I really wasn't. And I'm not trying to be self-deprecating. That's just how I felt. But it's interesting when we talk about craft, we use the same language. That was so eye-opening to me. Our creative processes, entirely different mediums, are so similar. And that was really, it was eye-opening for me. And I finally thought, okay, maybe I am a creative. So there you go.
When you are organizing your books, do you like to outline your novels ahead of time, or are you what they call in this world that I have learned is a pantser? Basically, you fly by the seat of your pants.
It's an interesting one. I'm a tiny bit of both, but I always begin with the end. Now, I don't exactly know what the end is going to be. For instance, in the English masterpiece, the final climactic scene is not what I envisioned, but I know how it's going to feel. And so once I know that feeling, then I kind of start at the beginning and where do the characters need to be to drive them, to race them to that end feeling. Then I would maybe put down three boulders along a path to keep me focused. And that's all I have. I start to outline while I write. Once I've done all the research and I can put myself in that world and I can feel where they're going, I outline as I write. And then I'm going to change the analogy a little. It's like running a wave up the beach. I run the wave as far as I can. Then I go back to the beginning. I outline what I've written. I try to outline a little head, and then I run that wave again up the beach, going a little farther. So by the time I hand a manuscript into my editor, that front matter, maybe I've gone over that 12, 15 times. And the end of the story, maybe I've only touched 3 or 4 times. But by then it's so solidly sitting on the beginning, I knew what it needed to be. I could hear the voices, etc. So it's a little hybrid of your plotter or your pantster.
Yeah, that is a bit of a hybrid mix there. I think that's very interesting, though. I also think it's interesting that every writer has their own unique style and their own unique process, but it's still rooted in developing those characters, developing the setting.
Yeah. That's really what the reader attaches to are the character's emotions and to believe that the character can inhabit that world. Because if the character is both believable depth-wise and you can believe they inhabit that world, then you're willing to go along that journey. So you're right, that sort of depth on both character and setting need to be there.
So your next novel will come out next year. That will be your 13th.
Yeah. The title is official, which I love. The publisher loved my title, and I have only ever titled one of my books, which was my debut, Dear Mr. Knightley. But I've titled this one. It's called The Undercover Bookshop, and it takes place in 1950, England again, but a small village in the Cotswolds, where a young, she's about 22. Her name is Gemma Brown. She works in the general goods store. She starts a little bookstore in one corner. And she looks around and she loves mystery novels, the classic British ones. And she begins to think a member of the town is a Soviet spy. So she gets herself into all sorts of trouble, but she may be right. So that's The Undercover Bookshop.
Ooh, that'll be a great one. And
It's so much fun.
We can expect that one when?
I think October 2026.
So about a year from now.
Yep, about a year from now, I hand in the manuscript next month. So I'm in the final draft right now, and I'm loving how it's coming together. And then it goes through about a year of edits and, pulling it together to be that glossy, fabulous book that hits the shelves October 2026. Yeah.
Fantastic. Do you ever go back to some of your original pieces and think, ooh, I could have done that better. Oh, I'm not sure I love it as much as I thought I did.
The funny thing is I don't, because that would be so dangerous. Like, I'm a different writer than I was back then, so I think that would be terrifying. So I actually don't go back. I think it might be like reading your diary when you were 16. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, that's a good idea. It's so interesting though, because you're right in the sense that they are different books. I've grown as a writer. I'm a different writer. I'm a different person than I was even a decade ago. It would be in many ways, although I'm no character within my stories, it kind of would be like going back and reading a diary on some meta level. So maybe that's why I haven't.
No, I understand that completely because as a journalist, I've been in the business for 20 years now, and I don't really like to go back and watch some of my very first reports because I'm like, okay, I was a baby journalist and I have grown so much, and I don't want to pick it apart.
Right, exactly. I don't want to go back with that that analytical eye, and not believe that there's, because when a book finally comes together, there's a bit of magic. There's that gloss to it that pulls the story together. And I don't want to go back and dissect and rip it apart with a critical eye. So it's best I not go back.
Well, I think the English masterpiece, I mean, it grabbed my attention immediately. And I love the cover of this book too.
Oh, I do too. I loved the cover. The title actually became or is so perfect because yes, we're talking about a masterpiece. And if it's a forged Picasso made in London, then yes, it's an English masterpiece. But it's also a book about self-identity. And we take Diana and we take Lily, and they are masterpieces. But whose are they? Whose masterpieces are they? And so it was really a title that had so many different dimensions to it. And I loved that they put both Lily and the artwork on the cover so that you're really drawn into that, multi-layer of the meaning behind the title. So I agree with you. I thought they knocked it out of the park with that.
And Lily, she looks so 1970s, doesn't she?
I think it's the red headband, not yellow headband, which I actually asked. Actually, no, I didn't. I just tried to take credit for that. I showed the cover to my creative architect daughter, and she said, put a yellow headband on her and it will ground her in the 1970s. And so I requested that, and I think the headband really, really worked.
I think so. That was a great suggestion.
I know, wasn't it? Not mine.
Did they get to read your books before anyone else?
They don't actually. The only person who reads my books before my agent and my editor is my sister. She is the only one who has ever been able to read my books early. She runs a bookstore, and she is a very good editor, and she does not compliment me, but she doesn't unnecessarily criticize me either. Everything's very constructive. So she is the only one. Otherwise, I hold it very tight before I hand it in. And part of that is if you get too many voices, it dilutes what you believe the story should be. And when my editor, I trust her, when she comes in with suggestions, we work together to change it. And that's a great process. But I'm so afraid of you might say, too many cooks in the kitchen. So I've only got one other who gets to read it before the editor does.
Well, I think that's wise.
It's funny. Once upon a time, I did have a friend and I traded manuscripts, and I read hers and she read mine, and she had a suggestion, and I just didn't think it was right, but I did it. Then I handed in the manuscript, and my editors in my editorial letter came back taking out every single thing my friend had suggested. And I was like, oh, darn. Oh, ouch.
Yes.
So anyway.
That was a good lesson. Sometimes we have to go with our gut, don't we?
Exactly. You're absolutely right. We got to go with our gut. And until it reaches the editorial process, I think that is the way to go because your editor, like you, wants it to be the best book. They have so much experience in editing books. They understand your voice and what you're trying to do. And so it's a real tight, protective, but really dynamic space and relationship.
Well, Katherine, thank you so much for spending part of your day with us.
Oh, thank you. I've had so much fun.
Yeah, it has been a blast, and we encourage you, go get a cup of tea and read the English masterpiece. It is out now. You've been listening to Chapter Chat. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Happy reading.